Ah yes, boot camps. Love them or hate them, they are a big part of our fitness culture, and they also can be a really fun way of getting into shape, especially if you like the energy of a group. But what tends to happen in boot camps is that we are looking at the instructor, or we're overly fixated on what our neighbour's doing, and before we know it, we've ground up this really ugly series of burpees and we've hurt our wrists, our shoulder, or possibly done something to our lower back. But it does not have to be that way, my friends. Hi, my name's Kamina Sue, and in this video I'm going to share with you some effective core exercises that you can do before a boot camp so you can safeguard your body from injury. So the first thing you guys want to be thinking about when you're getting yourself warmed up for a boot camp is making sure that your upper body is warmed up. And the most effective way to do that is making sure that your hands are warmed up. So a lot of the time, we don't in our day-to-day tend to press our hands into the floor, okay, unless you practice yoga every day or do some other kind of art that requires that. So the vast majority of us, especially if we're sitting at a desk and we are at a computer or we're driving, our hands and our wrists and forearms tend to be pretty weak, okay? So those are prime areas to get injured if you are doing something like a movement at speed. So you want to make sure that you're prepared for that. So the most effective way that I've personally found to warm up the upper body is called cambering the fingers. So what I'm doing here, I'm actually really spreading my hands on the floor and pressing the fingertip side of my hand into the floor. And by doing that, what I'm doing is that I'm actually really innervating the fingers. So I'm strengthening and stretching out the fingers by doing that. And what's going to happen is that you'll find that you can actually root and rebound from the floor a lot more effectively by doing that. So most people, when they're placing their hands on the floor, and you see this all the time, they have their hands like this, okay? The hands are close together, and a lot of the weight starts to sink into the heel of the hand or the inner wrist. So that's something you exactly want to avoid when you are in a boot camp. You want to, well, pretty much in any situation when you've got your hands on the floor, you want to make sure that your hands are spread as much as possible, kind of like a Spider-Man climbing up a building. And you're placing more of your body weight on the very fingertip side of your hand than the heel of the hand. So by doing that, you'll just feel a lot stronger and more controlled in your upper body. So the second piece of the core that I'd like you guys to consider is getting our lats firing. So very, very often these beautiful large muscles on our back are totally asleep, okay? And so when that happens, especially if we start doing anything to do with our upper body, we tend to overuse our shoulders and our traps, and we don't engage our back enough. So this very simple exercise will help us to get those lats firing. So here, we're just going to come to a shortened up down face dog position. This is called a low dog press. We're cambering the fingers, the hands are shoulder distance apart. Inhaling, I'm going to push the floor away. Exhale, I'm going to relax the head and then bend those elbows out to the side. So micro bending those elbows out to the side and feeling those lats engaging. Holding there for about 5 to 8 seconds with that micro bend in the elbows, and then inhaling, pushing the floor away, exhaling, repeating. And I'll just switch myself around here so you can kind of see the elbow bend. But you don't have to bend the elbows out too much. Inhaling, pushing the floor away, cambering those fingers. Exhaling, you can see I'm just bending the elbows, just a moderate amount, and really committing with what those lats firing feels like to memory. So after we've discovered our lats firing in the low dog press, we now want to feel our backs working in a exercise that is very, very common in boot camps, and that is the press up. I don't really like doing press ups from the knees because basically, it means you just create too much of an arch in the lower back. But by doing a negative press up, we're just going to regress that press up movement a little bit and hopefully start to feel those lats firing that you in the exercise you did earlier in this exercise. So let's go ahead and come into a plank position. We're going to inhale, push the floor away. We're going to squeeze the tailbone down towards the heels, and we're going to squeeze our quads. That's very, very important. That actually helps to hollow out our lower belly. So by doing that, we're going to take an inhalation, pushing the floor away. Exhale, I'm going to come right onto the tiptoes. And then feel your lats firing here as you lower yourself slowly to the ground. Okay, that's one negative press up. And then repeating the process, inhaling, pushing the floor away, exhaling, squeezing those quads and feeling those lats firing as you come down. Okay, so you want to be repeating that about 5 times in the negative press up. Now don't be discouraged if you can't feel your lats firing if this is the very first time you've tried this. This kind of thing really does take practice, okay? So if you found that you can't feel that with the negative press up from the floor, try elevating your upper body by placing your hands on a chair or on a platform and then lowering yourself down like that, and just really get your mind into your lats. So keep going with building that awareness in your lats. Your shoulders will thank you for it. So the next exercise I want to show you before you do your bootcamp workout is the trusty LSIT. So this is an awesome full body exercise which gets the TVA muscle, or the transverse abdominal muscle, firing like crazy, and it's also a really effective strengthener overall for your body. So you want to be using some fairly decently sized blocks. These blocks are actually a little on the thinner side. So if you're new to LSITs, you want to be using a higher block. So middle finger's pointing straight ahead. We're spreading those hands on the blocks in the cambered fashion that I mentioned earlier. You're going to take an inhalation, rolling the shoulders away from your ears. You're going to take an exhalation, lift yourself up, and then pull your hips back as much as possible. Now, if you are new to LSITs, you might actually just be here and then pressing up, okay, which is totally fine. As you get stronger, and especially as you build more hip compression strength, which we'll be addressing in the next exercise, you want to be pulling those hips back and keeping the feet on the ground. So the next exercise I want to show you is going to be strengthening your hip flexors, a muscle group that's very often short and weak because we do so much sitting in our day-to-day life. So this is a really easy and effective way to strengthen these important muscles. They're called hip flexor triangles. So come to a sitting position with your legs straight out in front of you and point your toes. It's really important to engage your quads, especially if your hip flexors are tight and weak. Your quad will want to take over. Okay, so you want to engage the quad to get it back into the hip flexors. So go ahead and lean back a little bit if you like. Just keep your chest lifted. And we're going to lift one foot out to the side, and then back again. That's one triangle. And really making sure that we're pointing those toes super strongly, okay? And that the knee is not bending. Try not to bend the knee. So this next exercise I'm going to show you is very, very helpful if you need to increase your hip mobility, which a lot of us could do a little bit more with, especially if you don't have a yoga background. And this is where you're just simply going to come to a wide-legged squat. So this is a really nice thing to do after you've done your hip flexor triangles, and just coming to a nice wide-legged squat, keeping your chest lifted and just letting your butt sink towards the floor. If you like, you can go ahead and just gently move, shifting your weight from one foot to the other, and that just helps to open those hips a little bit more. So I hope you find these exercises beneficial, and if you approach them with building strength and awareness, then I guarantee that you will benefit from these. It's also the same way how you approach the bootcamp class yourself, or if you're just doing one by yourself at home. Make sure that you do the exercises with awareness, okay? And if you're able to do that, as well as building the awareness and the strength through these previous exercises that I've just shown you, then you can up the ante without hurting yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. I'd appreciate your support, and we'll see you in the next video.